That's okay.
Was that you behind me the other night? Coming home? Pull your horn in my...
All right. I got 7 to 1 on there. You agree?
Yeah.
All set, Wally?
Done.
Everybody ready?
From Clemens?
Yeah. Good evening, board members and residents. I'd like to call to order our regular board meeting for Tuesday, May 28th, 2024. I'd ask that everyone present please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Witt, will you please take the roll call?
Yes, Mr. Backen.
Here.
Mr. Brado.
Here.
Mr. Olgiati is asked to be excused. Mrs. Rose.
Here.
Mr. Tominello.
Here.
Mr. Witt here. Mr. Verkast.
Here. Thank you. Next on our agenda is the approval of the consent agenda, including the approval of the regular board meeting minutes of May 13th, 2024, approval of the bills in the amount of $1,451,636.13, approval of the April 2024 revenue and expenditure report, approval of additional brine applications with the Macomb County Department of Roads, approval for annual hose and ground ladder testing, and approval of the Michigan Townships Association annual dues for July 1, 2024 to June 30, 2025 in the amount of $8,521. Unless there are any changes or discussion, I'd be looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
All right, is there support?
Support.
Got a motion by Mr. Badkins with support by Mrs. Rose. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Next is the approval of the regular agenda. Board members, I am not aware of any changes to the agenda. If there are none, I'd be looking for a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
All right, is there support?
Support.
All right, got a motion by Mr. Tominello with support by Mr. Brado to approve the agenda as presented. Discussion. Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Next is announcements. I do have a few brief announcements. This Saturday, from noon to 2 p.m., our very own Beautification Commission will be hosting their annual plant exchange at the Tucker Senior Center parking lot. You can find more information on the Facebook page or the township website for the full event details, but the idea is you can bring some cuttings or dig up some crowns and bulbs and trade them and share them with your neighbors for your garden. We know that many of our residents were unfortunately affected by the storms last week. Please know that our offices are in contact with the GFL chipping services. They are actively out and servicing our township. They are backed up due to the unexpected volume. I am extremely appreciative to the service that GFL is providing. Our contract involves basically 1 weekend a month of chipping. I believe the storm that we had came late Tuesday, if I'm remembering correctly. But so if you had pickup on Monday, if you had pickup on Tuesday, and unless you ran like heck and got your stuff out there on Wednesday, there were a lot of people who had that pickup before the storm. And I'm very, very impressed with the level of customer service that GFL has extended by running additional cycles of chipping to service our residents. Our normal chipping pickup will continue to be the first full week of June, so that week beginning June 3rd, for anyone who has chipping that wasn't picked up due to the storm. But again, thank you to GFL for their efforts. Are you looking for an exciting career? Our Harrison Township Fire Department is currently hiring. You can visit the township website for more information or call our fire department at 586-466-1450. Our 19th annual fishing derby is just around the corner. Pretty big event at Lake St. Clair Metro Park. You can find lots of information about it on our township website, and you can register for the event, which will be Saturday, June 8th. And for more information on these, as well as all other township events, you can call the supervisor's office, 586-466-1445. Visit our website, harrisontownshipmi, all one word, .gov, or follow us on Twitter or X at harrisontwpmi. Any other board announcements? All right, our next, that next event is the fishing derby, so that's a big one. For folks at home who have youngsters, there's lots of prizes, there's food and.
No
also-
cost.
No cost, it's free.
Well, you do have to pay to get in the park, so hopefully you
might.
already have your stickers.
Could ride your bike in,
Sure, you could, yeah,
but it is a great family event. So
for sure.
if you have never been, put it on your calendar and show up. At this time, I'd like to invite our county commissioner, Mrs. Barb Zinner, to come up to the podium and give us an update on county matters.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I want to say I was in the St. Clair Shores Parade. I did not get a count on how many entries they had. I know it's long. You know, you get in the middle of wherever you are, and that's all that you see, except for the ones that are going ahead of you all the time. And it was a lot of fun. There was a breeze the whole time. An extra quarter-mile walk, but I've been walking my daughter's dog, so for the fourth year, I was really in shape. It was great. Lots of kids, they're all happy, looking for candy, and it was great. Also, I was going to say, there was a resident that called me about the Ballard light not functioning as normal. What she had told me, and I gave it to Ken, because I talked to him as the supervisor, and he took it from there. We had they're putting in new traffic lights so that you can see the color of the light or under it. I thought it was against the law to be under a light. We do it by mistake sometimes, but that's what they're doing. So the supervisor can give you more on that, but he made calls on that. I know we talked about it, and we'll see how that works out with flashing light at different times of the day for the fishermen and the people trying to get out of that sub there is, I think, stimulating it's just challenging. What I really want to bring up today is the 911 tax that's coming or not coming. I don't know what the citizens will do about it. There was an article in the Macomb Daily I read, and they can only put so much information in. So I wanted to be clear about that. It's set at 42 cents, and there is a way that it could be $30 per cell phone. I don't know how it's going to go, because we don't know if it goes to the citizens, we don't know how they're going to vote. That's my concern, is if it goes to the public, do we know what the cost will be in the future? Do we need 911? Of course we need 911. Do we need the vehicles to be properly maintained? Yes, of course we do. Do we need to be in great communication? Of course we need great communication. The concern is, I know that a couple months ago when we voted on this, there was a backup fee, but it didn't come forward. 42 cents came forward, but it was a backup fee that was $5. Now it's set at $3. And again, it may not come forward, but if it's going to the public, what could the cost be to the public per cell phone? And if it's one or two people, maybe it's not a problem. I had a lot of calls and emails when it was 42 cents originally from people. Now, some people may think that's not really a big deal. However, other people did in the long run of the way it runs. So if you're adding $3 or $5 with 3 children, can that push the family to a bit of a financial concern? That's for the people to make their decision on. I brought that up, which didn't come out in the paper. I brought up, could we, as the government of the county, take a stance and take care of that problem ourselves? Now, that would have been a problem with the wording of what we were voting for that day, but then Commissioner Sabatini, who is the chair of finance for the commission board, and then you have Kraft out of Chesterfield, who's the finance chair, the vice chair of that. Sabatini said, we could put the money down. We could put our money down. We pay half, and the executive pays half on some things. And that was such a shocking thing to hear, that we could do that, and that he would consider doing that, because they watched the money like hawks. And I'm very happy about that, and I'm very proud of our board, because we want that money watched like that. It's the citizens' money, and that's what we want, is to be, in case there's an emergency, which we don't know there's going to be an emergency, but we want that money watched. We don't want it spent frivolously. But for him to say that we could have put the money down, our half, that would, to me, was outstanding. But it didn't go through, it didn't even get to a vote. It could have been handled, but it didn't happen. So either way, the commissioners had that ability, and I wanted you to know that that's how we are about the money in the county, this board, for the last 4 years. And that says something about that board. And because there was mention of that in that article. I just wanted people to realize that's what that scenario was about. It did get voted for the 42 cents. That's coming out. And again, I'm not against it. I just like things to be the best that I think it could be for the citizens. Thank you very much.
Thank you. If there are no other announcements, we'll move forward in our agenda. The next item is item D1 regarding 83 single-family residential PUD case 04-24-PUD, Victoria Park Holdings LLC. Board members, at the May 16th, 2024 Planning Commission meeting, the proposal for an 83 single-family residential PUD or planned unit development was heard. The commissioners recommended approval, given that based on the guidelines set forth in section 17.33C, that the proposed PUD meets the concept of the PUD for this area, that the requirements would be for Unit 22 to remain undeveloped until secondary access is provided, that the park and the trail are completed as a part of Phase 1, that the minimum floor space is set forth in the master deed and the development agreement, that the master deed include language set forth in the requirements for boat and trailer storage, that the landscape plan is amended to remove the beech and spruce varieties, that the order of construction is spelled out in the design considerations of the master deed, and that the master deed and development agreement are updated prior to township board review. So we have an extensive amount of information in our board packet. We also have Mr. Tominello, who is our planning commission liaison. We have been given the recommendation to approve this PUD. We also have the applicant present, so I don't know if you have any comments. I mean, you've spent a lot more time on this than me.
Yeah, no, I'd like to hear from the, I think we should all hear from the applicant.
Okay. Unless there's any objection at this time, I'll invite the applicant up to the podium.
I guess I got one question,
Okay.
Mr. Supervisor.
Yeah.
Who has confirmed that the update has happened to the master deed and the development agreement? Who verified that?
That information was provided from the applicant to planning and zoning, and they made sure that those were the updated information.
That is correct. And that'll also be part of the final reviews as well.
Okay.
So the planning and zoning secretary received and reviewed that information.
Okay, so, because that's all it says before we saw it. that
Correct.
was gonna
Yeah, in
happen.
other
So
words,
that's
yeah,
been-
did the changes occur?
We were going back and
Okay.
forth to to say, hey, can it even make it to this agenda? Can they get that stuff done? So we were working with the applicant to make sure, A, they could get it, so it wasn't a waste of anybody's time, and so they were able to
Okay.
get it in time.
I assume that is really the only question that I had.
Yeah, no
because
problem.
I sat through a couple of those meetings, and I think the planning commission did a really good job getting through
Absolutely.
that, so.
Yep.
Any other discussion? So then, oh, okay.
Not yet.
All right, well then, at this point, we'll invite the applicants up.
Good evening, Supervisor and Trustees. My name is Steve Pangoria. I'm with Anderson, Eckstein, and Westrick. We're engineers for the developer on this project, Victoria Park LLC, represented today by Randy Dupree. What you have before you is a proposed PUD project, as the supervisor indicated, on a piece of property, an assemblage of parcels that are bordered by Metropolitan Parkway, Jefferson, and Prentice Street. The group has assembled all except one of the parcels, an existing house on Jefferson Avenue. The assemblage, and then there's a second parcel that's across from the Catholic Church that is deed restricted for parking that will remain. It is not included as part of this development, but it has been secured by the developers. The project consists of 83 55-foot wide by 115-foot deep lots with a front yard setback of 24 feet, a rear yard setback of 26 feet, side yard setbacks of 5 feet side. Within the 30.5 acres that are being developed, there's roughly 6.99 acres that are being left as open space to comply with the PUD ordinance. The PUD ordinance requires 25% of the property to be left as open space. We are leaving roughly 26.6% of the property. The project is proposed to be constructed in two phases. The first phase, essentially the northern half of the development, consists of about 45 lots in the first phase, and then the remaining balance of 38 lots will be constructed in phase two. That's really the highlights of the proposed project. Be happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
I have a very minor question, but I think visually it would be an eyesore if it wasn't addressed. I don't recall if there, are there fencing, is there fences behind the lots that like sit along the bike path? I don't remember if it's open or if there's going to be like a vinyl fence that kind of close it off.
We are currently not proposing any fencing. There's some
Okay.
landscape trees, but no fencing is being proposed.
Perfect. That's all I need to know. I just didn't want 20 different fences going along the pathway. That would have been awful. So, but that, you just answered my question. That's fine.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Is that pumping station upgrade to Prentice Air accounted for this?
So from a sanitary flow, if that's what you're referring to.
And this is just, yep.
Yep. So the design of the new Prentice lift station did take into account the potential for residential development here, as well as the property that would be to the east of Prentice. So there is some vacant land east of Prentice. I mean, we'll say.
Basically, any vacant property was taken into the calculation.
Correct, right, yeah. So the idea was that that station is of a greater capacity now than the current station.
Okay.
Yep.
I thought that was the case.
Yep, it was, and we were very fortunate to secure a DCIP or a grant from the Department of Defense to cover a vast majority of the cost of construction for that upgrade to that lift station, because the flow from Selfridge does flow through the Prentice lift station. So, yes, it is sanitary flow based on, I believe we're going to have a pump station in place. We have to break ground by, I think, like September 1st or September 12th for that project. And so I believe we're going to have a sanitary lift station that'll service this development in place before there'll be any flow.
Right.
Any other questions, discussion? Anything else from the applicant?
One important thing that I didn't mention is the development group has agreed to put $50,000 in escrow towards the details of the community park at the corner of Prentice and Jefferson.
Okay. All right. So my understanding was that per some earlier conversation, that those funds would be specific to the development of athletic fields.
Okay, then I misunderstood.
Yep, okay, right. So I know that one of the things, one of the early objections amongst some of the folks at the initial meeting was that the Kellewart family had graciously allowed the use of their farm, once they stopped farming it, for soccer fields for, gosh, I'm sure 20 years at least. And so some of the folks came forward and objected to the development, saying, well, hey, we don't want to lose our soccer fields. And you say, well, it's kind of unfair to the Kellewart family that they can't sell land because they were polite or gracious enough to donate their use of their land or allow the use of their land for athletic fields. So the idea would be that, as I understood it, that that 50,000 would be able to be used, or would be specific to be used for the development of athletic fields elsewhere on township property.
So maybe Tucker Park or
Right,
Waterville
so-
Park or something like that.
So a thought would be, we might assemble maybe a committee of representatives from AYSO, Eastside Little League, get Adam Young, our township planner, involved, and look at Tucker Park, Trombley Park, and even Waterfront Park, and see what's the best way to reutilize. There's some land, there's some parts of Tucker Park that are wooded that could be cleared, and maybe we could reevaluate how the fields are laid out so that we'd have sufficient ball diamonds, both for the T-ball and the little older kids, as well as soccer fields, and they would be on township property, so we wouldn't have to worry about ever losing those fields, so.
They'd have the Calvert name on them?
Well, certainly there's an opportunity. I know that the planning commission discussed, and I believe the applicant, the developer discussed, some means in the existing park on this parcel or on these group of parcels to recognize the contributions that the Kellewart family had over many years.
I figured it was.
Yeah, and
Maybe work with the beautification commission, put a sculpture up or something.
could be a plaque, acknowledging it. There's a lot of really cool family photos that the Kellewarts have, so you might have an opportunity to scan a QR code and see something on your phone. I happen to have rhubarb in my garden that is a genetic descendant of the farm, so I'd be happy to plant a few rhubarb crowns in the garden if it fits into the plan, but some means, I think that's a part of the park site on this parcel. Any other discussion? Any other questions? Any other issues?
Are you ready for a recommendation?
Yeah, if there's nothing
It
else.
would be an approval, not a recommendation.
Oh, yeah, to approve the proposed 83 single-family residential PUD case 04-24 PUD Victoria Park Holdings. Do I have to read the rest of it?
It's in the record. I mean, it'll be included in the minutes.
Okay.
So we've got a motion by Mr. Badkins to formally approve the PUD plan as proposed with, is it fair to recognize in the minutes with the proposed amendment from the applicant?
Yep, sure.
Okay. Is there support?
Support.
All right, we've got a motion by Mr. Badkins, with support by Mrs. Rose. Our normal custom is once we make a motion, but before we pass that motion, or vote on that motion, I should say, not pass it, but before we vote on it, we will open up the floor for public comment. So if there's anybody present who wishes to speak to the motion, I invite you to the podium now.
Yeah, Mr. Bardell, 27-year resident, 50 years, skilled tradesman. The only thing I want to say about this is I know you guys all live in brick homes, probably most of you. I know 4. One person's not here. And this development is got brick homes on the other side of Prentice and the other side of Jefferson. Probably one of the best properties in Harrison Township. And I know the builder said there's only 2 types of bricks. And I asked the planning commission as a field trip to look up how many different color and styles of bricks there are. So I think we got a little bit bushwhacked as far as a brown and a red brick. There's probably about 50 different color bricks. There's probably about 30 different textures of bricks. The reason why builders don't use bricks is not because it's not contemporary styling. It's because it's cheaper. It's cheaper, less expensive. Okay? It's not rocket science. Normally, good bricks and mortar last 600 years. Poured walls will last about 80 years. So I'm just wondering why on God's green earth in an all-brick neighborhood, we're not talking about the stuff north of 16 Mile Road. We're talking about east and west and around the development that are all brick. All different color bricks. Drive through the neighborhood, there's different styles, there's different textures. A good mortar and a good brick will last you 600 years. Okay? The poured walls will last about 80 years. Stamped, concrete, poured walls. Now, I was asking that we have it at least 2/3 brick or half brick, or some type of creative brick in with the design. But I understand it's cheaper not to have brick. So, that's what I'm asking. I mean, I gotta play the bad cop here because, I've only been a resident here for 27 years and I've only had 50 years experience in the skilled trades. And I know about these things, and I know why builders don't use brick. There's a reason for it. It's not about being contemporary, it's because it's cheaper. And if it's cheaper, and you want to cheapen the neighborhood, you don't use bricks. So that's balls in your court, fellas. And I know you all live in brick homes. Thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Good evening, Jason Bernard, Harrison Township resident and Monzo Group team member, real estate agent doing business in real estate in Harrison Township. My third time coming out in support of this. I want to say that it's going to do great things for the supply of housing in Harrison Township. There simply aren't enough homes for that need homes right now. It's going to do amazing things for the local businesses, the tax base. All I'm seeing is amazing things coming out of this. I think he's got a wonderful plan to do this incredibly well, not just shoddy thrown together junk. You look at some of the nicest homes along Lakeshore, see the cement board, the nautical themes, not many bricks on $1 million home. So while I respect other people's opinion, I think what he's putting forward here, and certainly if you take the time to look through all of the different iterations, of what's being presented, they really are beautiful. So I want to voice my support again. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? Hearing none, we'll close the floor for public comment and move back to board comment. Any board comment?
I want to tip my hat to the planning commission again. I think they did a great job. So,
Very thorough.
This is,
lengthy process.
we're not Macomb Township, they're not doing 20 of these a year. This is a process for them, and I think they did a good job.
Absolutely.
And as somebody that is really going to be impacted this because I live across the street, I've gotten questions from people about what's going to happen, then I get just as many questions from people about when it's going to happen, because the model, the style of these homes, people are interested in them. In my neighborhood, they want to move across the street to maybe something where they can flex their time between here and Florida and make sure they have a presence where their grandkids are and stuff like that. So I think it's going to be a good thing for the community, for the school district, for everybody.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. A lot of folks have worked on this, in addition to the planning commission, folks behind the scenes, residents that have been involved, and we're appreciative to all the efforts. Folks to try to do something, a lot of folks said, well, I like it just the way it is. Well, if you like it the way it is, buy it. But if you don't buy it, then you gotta say, okay, what can we tolerate? What's a reasonable use of the land? A couple different things have been proposed there, and when they were opposed by members of the public, the thing that we heard resoundingly was, if you're gonna do something there, put single-family homes. And so this is what's before us today. So I think this is something great, and I'm also very appreciative of the willingness of the developer to help us relocate, if you will, maintain those outdoor activity, those opportunities for recreation for our young folks, which, to me, in the end, is really just a benefit to those 83 homes. Somebody might want to buy that home, they've got kids. Well, I don't want to have to drive to the next municipality for a soccer program. With his help, we'll be able to make sure that we have those facilities right here in Harrison Township.
I think we all love green space, and I think everyone likes parks.
Mhm.
We have a lot of green space in
Yeah.
Harrison Township compared to the surrounding communities,
You don't have to walk far east and west from here to
No.
find green space.
and we have a lot of parks. We
Yep.
have a massive park right around the corner from this
Yep.
development. So I believe, like you, that homes are the best use of this property, in my opinion.
Any other discussion? All right, hearing none, we've got a motion by Mr. Batkins with support by Mrs. Rose. Does this
It does
require
require a roll call.
Okay.
Mr. Batkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Rose?
Yes.
Mr. Brado?
Yes.
Mr. Olgiati is excused. Mr. Tominello?
Yes.
Mr. Witt? Yes. Mr. Verkest?
Yes. Excellent. Well, we look forward to working with both AEW and Mr. Dupre, and who knows? Well, pretty soon we'll see some homes there. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next on our agenda is item E1, and for those who are scrolling along in their board packet, it's all the way down at page 436. Took the liberty of looking it up. And that's from our fire department. So I'll address that now. Kind of shrunk down as you go through all these big pages in that last agenda item. Board members, the fire department is seeking approval to promote the temporary sergeant, William Nolan, to the position of sergeant, effective May 17th, 2024, as the result of the retirement of Sergeant Benjamin Bongiorno on May 17th, 2024. The temporary Sergeant Nolan has completed all the requirements for this promotion and is prepared to begin the duties on a full-time basis. In fact, he's been performing those on a temporary basis, which is why he's referred to as temporary sergeant, as a kind of a position we created in the last collective bargaining agreement, recognizing that sometimes when you're working in a higher rank, there's additional tasks, and so he's been doing those tasks. So the wages are defined in the collective bargaining agreement, so at this time, we'd be looking for a motion to approve the promotion of temporary Sergeant William Nolan to the position of sergeant effective May 17, 2024.
I'll make that motion.
All right, is there support?
Support.
All right, got a support by Mr. Brado, I heard.
Yep.
Been moved and supported. Any discussion, board members?
Was the retirement of Sergeant Bongiorno expected, or?
Well, I mean, I don't want to go too far into the weeds, but he had been dealing with a workers' comp issue, and as that progressed, he had a decision to make in terms of which direction to go. He was eligible for retirement, and if you're in an in-between situation, sometimes, especially a senior firefighter like Bongiorno, have banks that they build up of leave time, and so he had been using leave time trying to make that decision. So it didn't come as a massive surprise, but it wasn't something that had been planned, you know, hey, this is my last day. This was someone who had been off with a disability for a period of time, and so we made that decision. Any other discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, board. Next is item F1, just one page down, the annual treasurer's report.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I'm going to start and just going to try to summarize the report this year. You all have a copy of it. If you go to the first page, it talks a little bit about investment information, about banks we use, and I've sort of outlined the process life of an investment. I'm not going to go through those. I've done that the last several years. Sort of where the rubber hits the road is on page 2, township investments and returns. So in January of 2023, all of our JP Morgan accounts were converted to hybrid accounts. This simply means that they earn a combination of interest and service credits. Service credits are credits we receive from the bank that can be used to pay things like bank fees, but the issue with service credits is if you don't use them, you lose them. So by turning these into hybrid accounts, I'm able to move funding around where we get more interest, where we get service credits until we can pay for all of our bills, for fees for the year, then we get interest. The treasurer has actively invested over $3.4 million those are general fund dollars. So those are daily, weekly, monthly, and annual investing based on current market rates. So those are active accounts that get traded, I don't want to say every day, but they get traded throughout the year. Terms are based on investments and the type of fund that I purchase. Going down to the new sweep account implementation in April of 2023, I also implemented for our general fund account an investment cap sweep. Some of you who were at the State of the Township may have heard me talk about this. This new tool, it's an investment tool. It basically sweeps our general fund balance every day at 4 o'clock, and it can sweep up to $9 million, then which is invested and returned to our account each morning by 7 a.m. And on the weekends, it's invested for the whole weekend. So that investing is done in addition to investing of that $3.4 million above. If you recall, the school tax collections for 2023 was increased from $2.58 to $4 per parcel. This is what we charge the school systems to actually collect taxes on their behalf. So that's the summer taxes. Also, what we did is we entered into a contract with the schools to move their funding into, so all the tax money that comes in goes into a bank account that it gets, that receives interest. That interest is then paid out to the schools based on the interest that is returned from those monies in the tax entities. So basically, the school gets a portion of the interest, and all the other entities, the fire, library, all the other entities that we collect for also get a portion of that. So that gives them, that was something they requested, and we actually expanded it to all the other entities. So that was a win-win. We actually get a lot of that interest back as well, where we really weren't getting interest before. The Treasurer's Office also invests in library funds. This year, for 2023, I invested over $1.7 million in the library funds. And I have a note at the bottom of page 2, just to let everyone know, in 2020, 2021, when I took office, we were making approximately $35 in interest per quarter prior to implementing these new banking processes. So we've come quite a ways. We go to page 3, it sort of gives you a general overview on the interest we received. Not $35, but on our general fund investments, that's that $3.4 million I spoke about. We earned $283,000 in 2023. The library, of that $1.7 million we invested, reaped $83,926 in interest. In the Harrison Township General Fund Sweep, that's the sweep that I talked about, where the money goes and gets invested overnight and on the weekends. The average amount that we invested was $6.9 million, and that brought us an additional $230,000 for 2023. Total realized investment for 2023 across all accounts was $598,557. So quite a ways from $35 every quarter, and good showing in interest income. And then just a note on the bottom of page 3. Right now, I'm working on a water and sewer sweep. I'll report on that for the 2024 Treasury report, but we're going to take the water and sewer fund, and we're going to try to sweep that to add some additional income for water and sewer. Moving on to page 4, I'm not going to go through everything here, but over 24,000 tax bills were mailed. The tax rates are detailed on page 4. Total taxes levied was $45,724,000. So that was our total levy for 2023. Moving on to page 5, the Special Assessment District. And I actually added a little bit more information here. So our Special Assessment District, if you remember, this was special assessments that were on the books when I took office. They were close to almost $5 million. What we've done is we've managed to pay the special assessments, because what happened with special assessments in the past, the township acted as the bank, and what happened is the actual interest rate, although we may charge 3 or 5, that's really not the interest rate that we get, only because of the way we bill interest. We don't bill interest like a bank when we charge interest. We don't bill it daily or weekly or monthly. We bill it annually. So the effective rate of somebody that we charge 5% may only be 2.2. So my goal was to get that down, and this year we ended with a balance of $762,000. I'm sorry, $762,000 left to pay off on our bank-funded or township-funded SAD accounts. If you look at the bottom where it says SAD facts, you can see in 2021 we had a burden of $1.3 million, and then you can see that in 2022 it was reduced by $315,000 to $1,007,000. To 2023 it's $762,000. So I think over the next 2 to 3 years you'll see that come down to zero. I also outlined the 2023 Special Assessment District by imbalances. So basically, the Treasurer's Office and the Clerk's Office are now bonding all SADs. So basically, we do not have any kind of liability for SADs. They are bonded. And I'm also tracking that. You can see our first one was Venice Shores on there, and the amount that we bonded is on there. So basically, we have no liability in SADs moving forward. Page 6, basically, average total cash on hand, typically at any given time, is around $12 million. The bank fees, again, at the bottom of page 6, basically, this just talks about the different fees that we pay. I don't have numbers tied to them because it's based on the amount of money you have in the accounts. Just giving you an overview on what we pay to the banks as far as fees. Our online payment portal, which we implemented 2.5 years ago, I just have some statistics. So there's 5,495 customers now using the portal to pay bills. That's both water bills and tax bills. There's 1,472 that are signed up for auto pay. That's where the money gets pulled out automatically. We have 611 signed up for the SMS or text messaging. So basically, we're going to send you a text when we pull money or when we take money, so you get that information on your phone. We have 274 signed up for paperless billing. So that's a number we're going to continue to work on. You know, if I don't have to send a bill out, it doesn't cost us money. It's very easy because it's all automated to pay the bill and get a notification. And then we actually had 539 users for interactive voice response. That's our automated phone payment, so you can actually go on and pay by phone. And it's actually automated, so you press a bunch of buttons. Getting down to, at the bottom of page 7, I just want to go over the retiree health care fund balance. So in 2022, if you remember, was not a good year. Our beginning balance was $6 million. We had a market depreciation of $825,000 and left us with a balance of $5,497,725. 2023 was much better. We had a market appreciation of $834, so that was that's about a $1.6 million swing. We had the contributions. Our ending balance for the year is $6,724,315, so we're going in the right direction. Our retiree healthcare funded ratio is 21.1. That's a new number I've put on the retiree healthcare funds and the pension funds, so you'll be seeing that from now on as we go forward. 2023 is not on there because we do not get the actuaries report until the end of June. So you'll see that next year when I submit my annual report. Page 8, the fire pension balances. So the fire pension, just like the employee fund, we went from a market depreciation in 2022 of $3.6 million to a market appreciation of $1.7 million. So our end of year balance is $16,896,000, almost $17 million. Now, there's one thing that I do want to add that happened with this, and I can read it for you. But the Protecting Michigan Pension Program was created to help Michigan's underfunded municipal pension systems. Under the fiscal year 2022 and 2023 budget, the Michigan Department of Treasury was appropriated $750 million to establish and operate a local unit municipal pension principal payment grant program, so basically a grant program for qualified retirement system with a funded ratio below 60. And if you look at 2022, we were at 55.9, so we actually qualified for this Michigan Pension Program grant. The Fireman's Pension Fund in 2023 received $480,000, which was added to the fund. So that's one of the reasons why we. You can see it over here. I have it itemed out. So it's actually that $489,66, almost $481,000, was added to the fund. So we project that the 2023 is going to be somewhere in the low to mid 60% as far as funding, and we'll get that information at the end of June. Moving down to the employee pension fund balances, again, 2022, we had a depreciation of $2.459 million. And in 2023, good news, we had $1.943 million in appreciation. So again, we're in really good shape with the employee pension fund as well. Again, 2023 funded ratios will not be out for another month, but we look at that to be probably more than the 67.8. I'm not going to go over the rest of the items. These are sort of wins and process improvements that we did. But if you look on page 9, it talks about the different things we did in the treasurer's office throughout the year. And then on page 10, we have goals and objectives. And again, I'd like to keep a list of goals and objectives so we can keep on working and expanding and getting better and making improvements. So if there's no question, I'd be happy to take questions. If there's no questions, I'd be looking for a motion to receive and file.
Motion to receive and file the 2023 Annual Treasurers Report as presented.
Support.
A motion by Mr. Witt with support by Mr. Brado. And actually, I was just trying to go quick here. These big, so actually, I think I'm showing that we're at 71% funded, I think is the latest report for the, yep. So
And
it's been
again,
moving
yeah,
in the right
those
direction.
are, right, it is in the right direction, right, and our official our official numbers come out at the end of June, so.
Yep.
You'll have a surprise next year.
Yeah, yeah,
Fantastic job, Larry.
yeah,
It's
absolutely.
impressive to see how much you're bringing in with the
Crazy.
sweeps and this, reduction in fees.
Well, and almost 5,500 people online, so, you
Yeah.
know, I mean,
Yeah, it's-
and
it's
for
good stuff.
some, that's a real service, so it's, for a long time, this was one of the few bills I had to pay by check, right? I had to write a check and, pay my water bill, and working here, I certainly can't say it was inconvenient to walk in, but everything else, all my other utilities were paid online, so I appreciate that convenience as well.
Thanks for everyone's support.
That's great.
Mr. Tomino, is there any way you could find out what was Harrison Township's cash assets from 2004 to 2020?
I was thinking the same thing.
You want to know about cash balances?
I just want to know how much cash we had that we were making $35 a quarter on.
Oh,
Probably about the same amount of
pretty,
cash.
yeah, not as, really,
Here- So if I can, so what was happening back then was we were receiving all credits. So when you receive credits, you don't get interest. But we were receiving many, many, many more credits than we could ever spend. So we had these buckets of credits that just went in the wastebasket. So that was the problem. So you could take credits or you could take interest.
Yeah, and there was definitely a time where we were making interest, but when the market changed, so we weren't earning
inflation,
interest,
right?
we went to that credit model, and then we just never
Right, it
changed
was never
back
changed.
and
That's
followed
right.
the trends in the
That's right.
market, and you've been really aggressive in following what makes sense at the
Yes.
time. So-
Yes, exactly right. It's something that has to be looked at every day.
Right.
But in terms of the total capital invested, the only really substantial change that I could probably point to would have been the ARPA funds. So I mean, that was, in terms of we've seen pension funds have grown, but we're not talking about that. When you're talking about the interest side of things, it fluctuates as you go.
We've
right?
always been around 14 to 17 million dollars, give or take.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, so that, and in fairness, I mean, good and bad, we experience inflation, right? So, you could borrow money for 3%, but you weren't getting 3% interest on your money. So that does play a role in this. But even when things are slow, active management can generate revenue.
Yep.
Right, and we're seeing, certainly, combine that active management with a different interest rate environment, and we're looking at $600,000 worth of cash flow that we didn't have, or revenue, so definitely appreciative of that. Any other discussion?
And once the water department model gets on board, that's probably going to be much more than 600,000.
Yep. Yeah, the sweep for the water.
Yep.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, we've got a motion by Mr. Witt with support by Mr. Brado to receive and file the 2023 Annual Treasurer's Report. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Next on the agenda, thank you, Board. Next on the agenda is item G1 from the Clerk's Office.
Yes, sir. At our regular board meeting held on May 13th, Ordinance 406 was introduced, which regulates hazardous scenarios which result in the necessity of an emergency response by the township to provide reimbursement for recoverable expenses by the township because of the costs incurred in response of those fire emergency services, and also provides a civil responsibility violation within the township, and amends the blight, definition of blight to include junk vessels. Notice was run in the paper of introduction, and then this will be up for adoption today, and it goes into effect, I believe it's 30 days after the publication. So we'll have it in the paper within the next week or so, and then it'll be there 30 days after, so about 45 days after we adopt it.
Discussion, or is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt ordinance 406 to regulate hazardous scenarios which result necessarily of emergency response by the Charter Township of Harrison. Do you want me to continue?
I think you're good.
All right, is there support?
Support.
Got a motion by Mr. Badkins with support by Mr. Brado to adopt the ordinance as presented. Any discussion? Hearing none and seeing no Public comment, Mr. Witt?
Mr. Backens?
Yes.
Mr. Brado?
Yes.
Mr. Olgiati is excused. Mrs. Rose?
Yes.
Mr. Tominello?
Yes.
Mr. Witt? Yes. Mr. Burkowski?
Yes, thank you, Board. Next on the agenda, item H1, regarding a part-time park closer. Board members, our former park closer, one of our former park closers for a number of years, moved out of town, which left a vacancy. We have an applicant, George Correa III. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. He's been recommended for hire pending a drug screening, so the recommendation is to approve the hiring of George Correa III, pending a drug screening as a part-time park opener and closer.
I'll make a motion to hire George Kariha for the part-time park closer.
All right, is there support?
Support.
Got a motion by Mrs. Rose, with support by Mr. Badkins. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Board members, next on the agenda, item H2. During the storms a week ago, we had a pretty healthy,
Healthy size.
pretty healthy wind that knocked down a pretty big willow tree on the township property. We had, I do believe, we had an estimate emailed to the board, $5,400 from one contractor. When we put this agenda item together, we had this one. I think we had the other bid verbally, but it had come in writing later. So we did, and it's a big job. I mean, this is an 8-foot diameter tree. I'm sure it's every bit of 8 feet, maybe more. And it was destined to come down for quite a while. So we've got two prices. One was a total of 54, one was a total of 49. The one in the agenda packet is at 49. And then there are two prices from the low bidder, one at 44 and one at 49. And the difference is really whether or not we grind out the stump. So a little bit of conversation on that subject, because there is likely to be site work in this area, pending the addition that's being worked on by the architect for the new campus. And so, even grinding out this stump could result in, foundation work being done in that area and a need for underground work. So kind of seems to me that the extra $500 may be, it might look pretty on the surface, but we're going to still end up maybe paying someone to do a little bit of underground work if there's any kind of foundation or drain tile or anything else that's going on in this area. So at this point, I'm kind of inclined to propose that we just do the $4,400, save the $500, recognizing that at some point in the future, we're going to end up paying someone regardless to deal with that stump. So my recommendation would be to contract with MDL Tree Service to cut down the willow tree flush, haul away the wood and brush at a cost of $4,400.
So moved.
Support.
And a motion by Mr. Witt with support by Mr. Tominello. Discussion?
Was this the team that was cleaning up fallen trees before for us? Was this the same company? I thought there was someone else that.
Yep, so we have historically used Marlowe Tree Service, and they were the other company that bid on this. And really, Marlowe has done a great job for us. My instinct is this is a pretty big tree, right? So there's, on the plus side, we had a couple of monster oaks come down on the border of the 155-acre parcel. And Marlowe, Brian really did a great, he rented equipment, he drove back through the woods. He really did something that nobody else wanted to do. But this is also this is a big tree. Mm-hmm. And he's a kind of a smaller, more of a one-man firm. And so, 49 to 54, he's definitely competitive. But this is for us a new vendor. But they're competitive, so we'll give them a try. We'll see if we like them. And maybe we have a chance to use them in the future. But for now, I think low bidder gets the work. It's definitely not a, it's not a tricky area. It's not as if it's just a lot of rotten willow wood, with no value.
And do we
Go
issue
for
a subcontractor or PO for this? How do we typically handle this?
I don't know if I.
We usually just pay upon completion, satisfactory completion. There's nothing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, we have a motion to cut down the willow tree by MDL Tree Service for $4,400. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Board. Next on the agenda, item H3. Board members, we've been working on building a pedestrian bridge over the spillway at Jefferson for several years. We were successful in getting a grant from the Ralph C. Wilson Legacy Fund back in 2021 to do the preliminary engineering, with the DDA providing the matching funds for the grant. So, important to point out, the establishment of the DDA, we were able to leverage funds that were captured in the DDA to pay for a grant. So we did the preliminary engineering with no general fund dollars. That preliminary engineering was then used to apply for grants to fund the engineering and construction. We have been awarded a Transportation Alternatives Program, or TAP, grant, as well as an additional grant from the Ralph C. Wilson Fund, a commitment of $300,000 from the Department of Roads, as well as, we talked about some matching funds coming from the DDA at a prior meeting. The total project is estimated to cost $3.5 million. That includes the bridge, it includes some fishing piers, and some new path, as well as some sidewalk conversion to 10-foot path. The design engineering is being funded by the Ralph C. Wilson grant, and that's important to note because the process of soliciting bids sometimes is dictated by the source of the funds. The grant didn't have any strings on how that process was done. So we did develop a bid spec. The bids were solicited for the work with the help of the Macomb County Public Works. We just don't have an account to go online. They did that for us, which is very much appreciated. 5 bids were received. We evaluated the bids. We interviewed the leading 3 bidders and then scored the bids. There's an attached worksheet detailing the scoring with notes. The recommendation is to award the design engineering contract for the Spillway Pedestrian Bridge to Spalding D. Decker in the amount of $165,991. And I didn't include in this background, but this is the result of really us getting a lot of help from other agencies. Various county departments have lent their support. The Planning and Economic Development Department actually did all the grants for us. They applied for all of these grants. We had to provide some estimates and some documentation from the preliminary engineering, but they did the hard work and the footwork. Amanda Oparka and Amanda Minato in their department did that. Public Works helped us solicit the bids. The current chief highway engineer for Department of Roads is their former bridge engineer. He agreed to sit in on the interviews and gave us really valuable advice. I've spent a portion of my career in engineering, but it was automotive, and bridge engineering is really outside of my scope. So, we're very fortunate. The engineering was estimated to be, I think we've got over $600,000 in engineering in our preliminary budget. So we're really excited to see this price. We did have 3 firms that were pretty close, so we feel like,
There wasn't anything missed there. It wasn't like we had one bid at dirt cheap and then everyone else was way high.
Yep, and we did have some conversations with some of the higher bidders to say, is there something you feel like that was missed? And we did get a recommendation from one of the 2 high bidders to make sure that the other 3 firms included these 2 or 3 items. So we asked those during the evaluation, and that work is included. So I feel pretty confident with the process, that Spalding DeDecker, and I said in my narrative that, in the discussion, we believe all three firms we interviewed, but as far as we're concerned, all 5 firms are qualified to do the work. I think Spalding DeDecker is the best choice. Are there any discussions, questions?
I'll make a motion to award the design engineering contract for the spillway pedestrian bridge to Spalding DeDecker in the amount of $165,991.
All right, is there support?
Support.
All right, we've got a motion by Mrs. Rose, with support by Mr. Brado. Any other discussion?
My experiences with them is they're a solid firm.
And each of them, all 5 firms, had an extensive, proposal. And I'm going by memory, I think it was Great Lakes Engineering, but these 3 firms also included an additional engineering firm to help with some of the calculations.
There was requirements because it's MDOT money that they have to have certain certification requirements, and that's who they're partnering with. And
Yeah.
When the county said, oh, they're partnering with them, they're like they said like they're one of the best in the business. I feel a lot better about this.
Yeah, so the firm escapes me now, like I say, I've got it in my notes and in their bid spec, but also their partner in this came highly recommended by the county. So, and again, this is the probably first and last bridge I'll ever be involved in the construction of, whereas, they do these, multiple bridges per year. So I'm kind of happy to get that reinforcement from people who do this pretty regular.
Did they, was there an hours breakdown on the RFQ? How did they submit their price? And
Yeah.
is that information available?
It is available.
Okay.
But, so, and again, I think, I'm gonna tell you, when Adam, because the bids went to Adam, so bear with me for a
I think
second.
they're pretty big. I'm happy to send a link to them from.
Yes, 37 megs was the email, so I can definitely, I think,
I'll throw them on Laserfish and then I can throw it down.
Well, I can-
to
I can
everyone
forward it.
Oh, if it'll go.
yeah, I mean, I can forward
I mean,
it.
if it's okay. I would
No,
like to-
Yeah,
Yep. No, but I think Spalding they're a good outfit, my
Yep.
experiences, so.
yeah, I feel, again, and as I said, I feel like all of the firms were qualified, but I feel like this was the best choice,
Yep.
so.
Okay.
Any other discussion?
From everything I've seen so far in this project, that's going to be a pretty cool-looking bridge.
Yeah, I think there's some cool opportunities there. And we talked about the potential for maybe only having one fishing pier or a more limited fishing pier. We want to make sure that there's a reason for people not to fish off of the bridge. If somebody wants to fish in that area, we're trying to say, okay, look, fish hooks and bicycles, casting
Yeah.
hooks and bicycles don't mix. But maybe this will lead to some additional funds in the total package that'll allow us to do two piers or a nicer pier, something like that. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Board. Next item, H4, regarding a MERP, MERS to a MERP. So the most recent collective bargaining agreement, or CBA, with the International Association of Firefighters, or IAFF, included switching from making a monthly contribution to a MERS healthcare savings plan to a monthly contribution to the IAFF Medical Expense Reimbursement Plan, or MERP. This change requires us to establish an account and a formal relationship with the IAFF MERP. Attached are the 2 documents that need to be completed, signed, and submitted to begin the process. I'm requesting authorization to execute the 2 agreements with IAFF MERP. So I'm sorry.
I was going to just make a motion to authorize supervisor to execute the 2 agreements.
All right, is there support?
Support.
So we did agree to make the switch in negotiations. This is kind of like the follow-up paperwork to make it happen. And I believe part of the agreement was we suspended contributions in 2024 until these were in place. So whatever the monthly contribution is, we'll make them as a lump sum once these are once these accounts are created. Once we do this, I think we have to send them some census data and some other things, but I felt if I'm going to enter into an agreement, I needed board approval to do so, so I appreciate the support. Any discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Next on our agenda is item I, public comments. They can be about any subject that you wish. We ask that you try to limit your public comments to 5 minutes in length. So we'll open the floor now for public comment.
Yeah, C. William Bardell, 27-year resident, clean cut, do-gooder boy next door. Clean up, fix up, people helping people. Proud Blue Dog Democrat. I just want to remind everyone to please check out Save Lake St. Clair on Facebook and stay up to date on everything that's going on and try to help out our lake and our environment and hopefully we can make some change. Thank you so much for your work. Enjoy your evening.
Thank you. Is there any other further public comment? Seeing none, we'll close the floor for public comment and move to board comment. Is there any board comment?
Do we have any update on Waterfront Park?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the short answer is yes. Bids were originally due like the
16th?
16th or, 16th. There were a number of questions that were raised through the bidding process, so.
Because we had a lot of, it wasn't just a lot of questions, it was a lot of interest from multiple bidders.
Oh, great.
Right, yeah, so the decision was made to extend the bid deadline until the 23rd, which I think was Thursday
Yep.
at 2. So we received an email from Wade Trim, and those bids varied from 1.29 to 2.432 million. So the low bidder is a pretty large firm. They did the pier in St. Clair Shores, is that Memorial Park?
Yeah.
They did the Riverwalk, downtown Detroit, so I kind of feel like they can handle Waterfront Park.
Yeah.
The bids, the low bids, 1.29, 1.396, 1.692, 1.776, and 2.4. So when you look at those four low, we're at 1.3 to 1.77. That's a fairly tight grouping, right? So I don't feel like, it's a big project. Putting that pier out into the lake it is a structural pier. And then there's plenty of work on the shore. So a recommendation should be coming back to the board. I have reason to guess that it's probably the low bidder. They seem to be qualified. I mean, I can't say that for sure right now because I'm still waiting to get the recommendation from the engineer. And we also learned today that they were looking at beginning in the fall. Some of the photographs from other projects show them working in the ice. So they're a big enough firm that, must be able to kind of work year-round. So they said at this point, there's no reason to believe if they do get to work, that they'd be starting before Labor Day, which is a real relief for us because we're getting requests from folks. So yeah, I want to book it for, August 3rd for this wedding, party or wedding shower. And so we've been holding off. So we believe we're in pretty good shape there. And then since we're talking about Waterfront Park, not knowing what that timing looked like and not wanting to ask for bids, only to find out that we can't kick off the work for 6 to 9 months, I do anticipate coming back to the board with some recommendations or requests to make some improvements to the bathhouse, both interior and exterior. So I think we can do some interior remodeling. The gables needs a new roof. Gables could be, sided, kind of spruce it up a bit and fix it up inside as well.
Isn't the DSO doing a mural in the bathhouse as
Yep,
well?
yep.
DIA.
DIA.
I mean, did I say DSO?
You said DSO, yep. And at this point, the artist that we believe we're getting is like an international artist
Cool.
to do this mural. The artist has done work in the Metro Detroit area, some pretty cool pieces, but I mean, you know, the portfolio is literally, you know, all over Europe, Asia, and the US.
Well, maybe
So-
we could have the DSO play music while the people.
Yeah, they could, right, it could be
I
like,
like that.
yeah, there you
They
go.
did not nominate themselves for our summer concert series, so they're out.
They're out.
Yep, so, all right, any other wisecracks?
Just a question, Mr. Supervisor. In the Huron Point neighborhood, this would be at the lake, it actually at the first bridge, so there's a little parcel right off the bridge that we maintain.
Okay.
It'd be from the.
The road right
west
away?
of the bridge, yes.
Yeah.
So during the storm, there were some trees that fell down. I know they haven't been addressed yet. I didn't know, I was actually going to call your office today, and I ran out of time, but I didn't know if we've looked at those. Yes.
Mhm.
That little
It's
triangle.
where Riverdale dumps into Lake Shore.
Riverdale, that's
Yep.
the street I was trying to think of.
Yep.
So I know there's some trees that are down and cracked, and I don't know if maybe we can have our maintenance folks take a look at that. I was going to call Mr. Nelson, but I figured I'd just mention it to you tonight.
We'll take a look at it. I'm not sure the scope of the work, or whether or
Yeah,
not
I'm not
DOR
either.
does it,
Yeah,
and I know I've been in communication with
Okay,
one of the residents in your
Yep.
neighborhood to talk about options there.
yeah.
But I will
Perfect.
take a look at that, for
Okay.
sure. All right, any other discussion? Hearing none, seeing, be looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, is there support?
Support.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries, meeting adjourned. Thank you, board.